Hello, students. Very good morning. In continuation of the important passages from Macbeth, today we shall try to analyze and see the meaning of two passages from Act 1, Scene 4. Before we go with the text of our today's passages, let me just remind you the brief story that we have come to know till now. That is, Macbeth and Banquo are returning from the battlefield. Three witches plans to meet Macbeth and they meet them in their way. All three witches greet Macbeth with three prophecies. Number one, the Thane of Glamish, Thane of Cawdor, and the king hereafter. They also do the prophecy for Banquo that he will be the father of the kings. In this way, we saw that these evil spirits are trying to tempting both the brave soldiers. On the other side, we saw that the King Duncan is waiting for these courageous soldiers in the camp with his sons Malcolm and Donalbain and other attendants as well. The attendants were bringing the messages or the tidings from the battlefield, and they were also communicating whatever felt or said by the King Duncan for the soldiers. So the King Duncan was very much pleased when he heard that Macbeth fought very bravely and won the battle. So he honored Macbeth with the title of the Thane of Cawdor. And MacDonald, who was the Thane of Cawdor, was found guilty and a traitor. So he was sentenced to death. Here, the context of this passage number 1 is that in the fourth scene of the Act 1, King Duncan is asking his son Malcolm about the execution. That is whether the Thane of Cawdor, MacDonald Wald, has been executed or not. Malcolm replies that the Thane of Cawdor has been executed, and he also tells to the king that the Thane of Cawdor also realized his crime and he was begging pardon from the king. He was repenting and was looking, and he bore the sentence with gladly. So the king was impressed, or the king was influenced by these words of Malcolm about the Thane of Cawdor. Therefore, the king spoke these words. This is our passage number 1, and this is that there is no art to find the mind's construction in the face He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. So these are the words spoken by the King Duncan when answered by Malcolm about the Thane of Cawdor. They are staying in the castle of Forres, and the context is about the Thane of the Cawdor. So King Duncan also feels sorry, saying that he could not identify the Thane of Cawdor. Therefore, he speaks that we cannot find, we cannot see, we cannot find the mind's construction in the face. There is no art that can tell us about someone's mind, about the mind of a person. So it is very difficult to know one's mind because faces are not the index of man's mind. You cannot just get what's happening or what's running in the mind of a person from his face, because the face or the appearance is always false, and something deep, something otherwise is always running in the mind. So he says there is no art which can help us to know the thoughts of mind in the faces of men. So he says MacDonald, the Thane of Cawdor, he looked to be a complete gentleman, and it was not expected of him that he would turn out to be a traitor. So from appearance point of view, MacDonald looked very gentleman. But how one can expect from such a man to commit such deed that is equal to traitor, that is equal to disloyal to his country and the king? So we understand that King Duncan had full faith, confidence in the Thane of Cawdor in him. Now here the important thing is that King Duncan speaks about the Thane of Cawdor and whom he calls a deceiver, and he also calls that no one can read the mind through the faces. But when the king speaks these words, Macbeth and Banquo enters there. They are at the gate, and the audience know that Macbeth hears these words. So King Duncan does not know, it is only the audience who know that the another cheater or the traitor or the deceiver is approaching to the King Duncan. The earlier the Thane of Cawdor has been sentenced to death, but now the Thane of Cawdor, whom the King Duncan is very much pleased and has honored him the new title, and is very much overwhelmed for the courage and the valor that Macbeth had. So here again we see that the King Duncan is trusting Macbeth, but he cannot read what is there in the mind of Macbeth, as Macbeth appears there as well as he hears these words also. Because it is the audience or the readers we know what's running in the mind of Macbeth after listening to the prophecies made by the three witches. That is, he is thinking about becoming the king of Scotland. But how? That's the planning which is running in the mind of Macbeth, but King Duncan cannot see this. So, this is a kind of dramatic irony, and definitely it gives special points to Duncan's words. And the last sentence spoken by Duncan, Macbeth hears and feels that King Duncan was placing himself in the hand of a great traitor, namely himself. So here, Macbeth also feels himself that he is the real traitor, but King Duncan is not or cannot identify him only through his faces. So, this is what we have for the critical note or the comment of these lines. These lines are very, very important in this scene, and because they tell us or about the playwright who has used the device, poetic device, that is the dramatic irony. So the dramatic irony, that the audience knows the thing, but the character doesn't know what is the real. So whatever said by King Duncan for the earlier then of Cawdor MacDonald world is absolutely becoming true for Macbeth, whose face gave very little indication of his mind's construction. So this is that text 1 or the passages 1 for today that we have done. Now come to the second passage. The second passage or the text is also from the same scene, that is from the scene 4. And these lines that I have chosen for you are spoken by Macbeth. Macbeth speaks these lines on the stage in a aside, or we can say a kind of soliloquy. Soliloquy is a bigger one. So this is aside, the smaller one. So here Macbeth speaks these lines or this dialogue, but the audience are not supposed to hear this dialogue, because this dialogue is the thought or the thinking of the character's mind. What is actually running in the mind of the character is expressed in the play writing or in the acting through this device, that is the aside. So we the readers, in order to tell the readers, this kind of technique is used. So let us first go with the lines. What are they? Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eyes fears when it is done to see. So we can understand that these lines Macbeth speaks to himself, The audience who are sitting there are supposed to hear these lines, but the characters who are acting on the stage are not supposed to hear these lines. So, this is the construction of the mind. What's happening in fact in the mind of the character. So, these are the lines spoken by Macbeth, and what we have seen in this scene, that then Macbeth and Banquo enters, and King Duncan praises them too much and is very much thankful and obliged to Macbeth that he has won the battle. He is very much pleased and he is appreciating their daunting courage and bravery that they showed in the battle. He is so overwhelmed and pleased with gratitude for them that that he finds King Duncan finds the occasion very suitable or very pleasant occasion to make an announcement. That is, King Duncan is here making an announcement after having won the heart of Macbeth and Banquo and after thanking them. He says that this is a good opportunity for him to announce what he has in his mind. And what are these two announcements? Number one, he says that Malcolm, his son, will heir to the throne of Scotland. That is, Malcolm will be the successor to him on the throne. And what was the second announcement? King Duncan says that he is so much pleased that he has determined to visit Macbeth at his castle that night. That is, he wants to spend this night at Macbeth's castle. He wants to, he will be very happy becoming the guest of Macbeth today. So these two announcements are made by the King Duncan. The title that King Duncan confers upon his eldest son, making him thereby the successor or the heir to the throne. This, in fact, supplies the motives. One supplies the motive and the occasion for the crime. Because this announcement instigate or create something wrong in the mind of Macbeth. We know it very well that the idea of becoming the king of Scotland has already crept into the mind of Macbeth when the three witches foretold about his present and future. So this proclamation or this announcement instigates the mind of Macbeth to commit the crime. Then Macbeth also thinks that this is the barrier. In fact, this is the barrier. The nomination of Malcolm as Duncan's successor is an effective barrier, is the barrier which can prevent him to become the king of Scotland. So Malcolm here is the is the obstacle for Macbeth in his way to the throne. So, these announcements are actually preparing the plot for the crime. The second, then he thinks that his ambition to become king can only be realized by adopting foul means, not by fair means. Because Malcolm has been announced by the king as the successor. So there is no fair meaning or fair means through which Macbeth can become the king of Scotland. So he thinks that there is this ambition can only be realized if he commits the crime. And then he also finds that the second announcement is the opportunity for him. And what was the second announcement? Second announcement was that the king will be the guest at Macbeth's castle tonight. So this is the good opportunity. Macbeth thinks that this is the good opportunity for him, and he must use of it if he wants to complete his ambition, or if he wants to fulfill his ambition. So this is the background. This is the background. This is the context in which Macbeth speaks these lines. Now Macbeth speaks, and that is actually his vivid imagination. Whatever he imagines has been spoken in aside, and these lines are his imagination, which pictures the darkness of the night when he means to enact this, that with no stars to look down upon and bear witness against his deed. Therefore, Macbeth appeals in these lines to the stars that they should put out their light. Macbeth requests the stars, appeals to the stars, that he has made up his mind to commit the crime or to take his plans to the final, to the full. Therefore, he asks the stars, what he asks? Hide yourself. He says, hide yourself. So please don't show. He asks the stars not to show themselves, so that there may be no light. If there is no light, because the act that he is going to commit or to do is not the act to be done in the light. It is the deed of crime, and it can only take place, or it can only be done in the darkness. This is what the design, or the secret design, that Macbeth is planning. So he addressing to the stars, he speaks that they should not show their light. Then he says to the eyes, he asks the eyes, the eye to wink at what the hand intends to do. He says to the eyes that they should wink at what his hands intend to do. Although the eyes will not guide the hand. Whatever the hand is going to do will not be guided by the eyes, because whatever deed he is going to do will also not be seen by the eyes. even the eyes will shrink from seeing after it is done. So, whatever the hands will do will also not be seen by the eyes. Eyes don't have that much courage or that much uh, dare. They don't dare to see the act or the crime that the hands are going to do. So, Macbeth in these lines request both the stars as well as the eyes. The eyes should also not see whatever his hands are going to do, because even after the action is done or the murder is done, they won't be able to see that. And he requests stars that they should not show the light, because his act is not for the light. Now, so far the critical note for these lines is concerned that we can conclude, we get some impressions of the character of Macbeth here. That the idea of King Duncan's murder or the conception of Duncan's murder is here of Macbeth, not of Lady Macbeth. Because this idea has entered into the mind of Macbeth first. So, when we will analyze the character of Macbeth later on, here at this juncture, we will say that it is Macbeth who is responsible for the murder of King Duncan. It is not Lady Macbeth, because till now Lady Macbeth is not in the picture at all. She doesn't know what's happening in the mind of Macbeth and what Macbeth intends to do. So, the important thing is here that the conception of Duncan's murder is Macbeth's, not of Lady Macbeth. And Macbeth is a villain and doesn't deceive himself, but he is ready to murder Duncan. Here Macbeth is over ambitious, and here he doesn't fear at all, but he gets ready himself to murder King Duncan if he wants to fulfill his ambition. And he realizes what are the barriers, and if he wants to achieve the throne, he has to step over those barriers, and that can be done only by the foul means, not by the fair means. And it's a dark deed, and it can only be done in the darkness of the night. And Macbeth apparently appeals to the stars because he is contemplating night as the time for the perpetrations of the deed. So he wants that the darkness should be there, although whatever he is imagining right now is in the day. There is nothing in this scene which can indicate that this scene is taking place at night, or that Macbeth is thinking or is contemplating, meditating in the night. So these are the critical comments that you can put, or the dramatic importance of this scene is that I have told you. So finally, we have understood that Macbeth has finalized to commit the murder of King Duncan by now. So, thank you very much. for these two passages. I hope that you will enjoy the explanations, the context, as well as the critical note, and this will also help you for preparing notes as well as for the examinations. And if you have some questions or any questions, please, you are most welcome to ask. In our next lecture, we will do two more passages from the next scenes of Macbeth. Thank you very much.